Good afternoon and welcome to your science review with Mr. Blades. Today we're going to discuss the difference between vectors and scalars. You can see we have a maze. You're familiar with this? We have a beginning and we have a finish, and in between we have a path that must be traveled. We are going to describe the motion. In order to describe the motion, we have to say where it began. In physics, we call the beginning point the origin. It identifies the place and helps us describe our motion. Distance is how far you travel, the total number of boxes that you travel. But displacement, which is different, is how far out of place you are, how far you are from the origin specifically. You can see we have a beginning point, we have a finish point, and in between them we have to travel some distance, and the red line gives us our distance. That's the total number of boxes that we had to cover in order to get to the finish. However, we are only at the finish, and the displacement is how far from the beginning we are. So let's discuss whether or not something is a vector or a scalar. A scalar is anything described by a number. We call this number the magnitude. Distance in particular is a scalar. The direction does not matter. It doesn't matter which direction we go with all those boxes, just that we traveled them. Mass, temperature, number of desks, these things are scalars. It wouldn't make any sense to say I have 35 desks to the left, or I have 100 degrees outside up. A vector is anything that's described by a magnitude and a direction. In particular, displacement is a vector. The magnitude can also be called the absolute value of a vector. Speed versus velocity. Now, distance and displacement are scalars and vectors of a position, but speed and velocity is how fast your position is changing. What's the difference between speed and velocity? Now, if we take a look at the speedometer in the frame, what doesn't the speedometer tell you? It doesn't tell you where you're going. So the only thing the speedometer can show you is the speed. The speedometer doesn't tell you where you're going, so velocity is speed with the direction. Velocity is the vector. Now, normally when we're discussing direction in physics, it will be represented by either a positive number or a negative number, and speed is scalar. So if an object is moving in a straight line, how do you distinguish whether it's moving forward or backward? Now, normally we need to pick a reference frame and describe which way you're moving, which is one of the reasons we pick an origin to begin with. But what if you had to describe the motion to someone who didn't see it? You'd use numbers. Now, this is where your math teacher originally lied to you. Which of these following numbers is biggest? I'll give you a second. Now, in physics, negative does not mean small. And if we think about it that way, it becomes clear that the biggest number is in fact negative 15. Most of us think big and we think highest number. 3 is the highest number, but it's not the largest number. Negative is the opposite direction, as I mentioned before. So the negative 15 would imply 15 boxes in a different direction than the 3. Precisely. For magnitude, all we need is the number. There is no such thing as a negative distance. And again, the negative only indicates its direction, nothing about its magnitude. Now, please take the time to check your understanding and try to answer some of these questions. Some of these questions are not addressed and will be addressed later on, so do the best you can. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in class.